At the foot of Russia, nestled in the Caucasus Mountains, the small country of Georgia is generating a creative buzz. And much of it has been down to this man, Georgian fashion designer Tamuna Karumitse.
He's like a god among Georgian designers.
He's currently the art director of the global brand Balenciaga and has pioneered a new style that the fashion scene call post-Soviet.
Post-Soviet aesthetic. I don't know even if it's right to call it like that, but we all do.
People still don't understand that we are not part of Russia.
I have no idea what it's exactly like post-Soviet style. I really don't know.
Now, a new generation of fashion designers are looking to the country's past to create their future.
There are some designers that are like reflecting the post-Soviet vibe.
Georgian people has seen everything. They have seen war and we survived.
Once, Soviet fashion was looked down on.
The West was always disparaging fashion coming from the socialist countries.
But now, local Georgian designers are making waves in the fashion world globally. I want to find out if the tables have turned in the fashion world. Why fashion capitals like Paris and New York have been looking east for style inspiration. And how ugly became the new cool.
The world has changed in fashion, like ugly is new black, I think.
But what even is post-Soviet style? And is it the right label for Georgia's modern fashion scene? Join me on Compass as I discover Georgia's post-Soviet fashion boom. In the early 2000s, Georgia was on the brink of becoming a failed state, but today it's a fast modernizing regional economy. I've come to Tbilisi to discover the local Georgian fashion scene, one that is snapping at the heels of the global fashion industry. Why did Georgia give birth to some of the coolest designers of the 21st century? What exactly is this new style, dubbed in the media as post-Soviet? Is it just a trend, or is Georgia's ascension into the fashion world actually sustainable? Georgia, like many other countries in the so-called East, suffered years under the Soviet Union.
It is not easy to define fashion behind the Iron Curtain because it was a complex phenomenon depending definitely on politics, but also on culture.
იყო სტაგნაცია ფაქტიურად, იყო სტატიური და იყო ინდუსტრიული მოდა, როგორც ესეთი. თანხმდებიან მკვლევარები, რომ რეალურად არსებობდა გარკვეული სახის ტიპის მოდა, ოღონდ ამას ერქმეოდა დაახლოებით ეს ინდუსტრიული მოდა.
People would dress in different ways, either depending on whatever they could find in the shops. The socialist countries from the period 1917 to 1989, they did not invest really in fashion. So people did make their clothes because somehow it was easier to buy fabrics than to buy nice clothes in the shops. What is interesting for me that fashion magazines did exist in the socialist countries, and everybody could think that they didn't exist. They are wrong. I remember when I came to Moscow first time to start my research, I found like maybe 20 or 30 fashion magazines in the library, the titles, and I ordered some of them. And I couldn't believe when I've seen them because they looked, from the 1930s, they looked completely like Hollywood, high fashion, Hollywood films. So that already shows, and that continues afterwards, that they were about aspiration. They were not really reality. You couldn't buy those clothes in the shops. Maybe you could get inspired and make them on your own.
In Georgia, people, my mother generation, they used to dress completely, I can say it was more stylish than today because there was no stores, you couldn't buy anything. Nothing was sold in the stores, so they had to invent themselves. They were copying from the movies from the 60s and 70s, Catherine Deneuve and all these women were like style icons for them, and they were copying the same pieces.
There were not so many things to buy because there was this main production, I think, and everything kind of looked similar in the shops, and there was not so many shops for clothes. That's why people were making their own clothes. So everybody was doing their sell dresses, and so everybody could sew a little bit. Well, I remember also myself picking up my mother's clothes and changing those.
After the fall of the Iron Curtain in 1992, with its economy in tatters, the Georgian people suffered.
That was the period when everything collapsed, then there was nothing really to buy. It was very difficult time for Georgia. There was no light, no gas, no nothing, no eating, nothing really.
In 90s we have crises and everyone was wearing like clothes from 80s. They don't have money to buy like new clothes.
We didn't have that many shops or anything. We went to the markets and we had few things to choose.
Everything was in a deficit. Georgian people like to dress really very nice, and they bought dresses not Soviet ones. It was not so popular, but they tried to buy under the table.
რა თქმა უნდა, გარკვეული ფენებს შემოქონდათ და ჩდებოდა რაღაცა გარკვეული ჯგუფები, რომელიც იყო საშუალება, რომლის საშუალებითაც შეიძლებოდა აი ტანსაცმლის ყიდვა, როგორც აი ვთქვათ, ევროპის ქვეყნებიდან ეს იყო რაღაც გარკვეული სახელოვნებო სივრცეებიდან ეგეთი ადამიანები, რომლებიც მოძრაობდნენ და ჩამოქონდათ და ყიდნენ, მაგრამ ეს არ გამოისახებოდა მასიურად. გარკვეული ჯგუფები
For Georgians and for Soviet countries, everything what was from the Europe, it was they thought that the quality is good and everything from Europe is a good.
ხაობა ის იყო, რომ ის პერიოდი ზუსტად გამოიკვეთებოდა თავის ჰიბრიდულობით, როგორც ესეთი. და გამსასყავ რატომ? იყო ძველის და ახალის ნაზავი, ანუ მცდელობასია ვესტერნიზაციის.
Socialist countries, the Soviet Union and others, could compete during the socialist time, during the Cold War. They could compete with the West in many fields, either the arms race, space race, education, everything was perfect there. But they absolutely couldn't compete in fashion. The West was always disparaging fashion coming from the socialist countries, and it absolutely had any credibility.
But now you are realizing that there was something very interesting here. The people from Europe, they think about what's going on here, how we live, how we dress, what's happening, for example, in art, in design. And we are also thinking what's going on there, and we like everything what was there, and they like everything or think that we have something here.
And then now seeing that socialist fashion, rather style, which is typical of socialist fashion, meaning modest, badly executed, somehow ugly for the Western eyes before. Now it's suddenly interesting.
This is Fabrica, an events and community center, a hotspot for the fashion scene. Many young Georgian designers are pushing boundaries in showrooms and workshops found in this post-industrial building.
This is a Fabrica, and this Fabrica was founded in the beginning of 20th century, and it was the biggest sewing factory in Caucasus, not only in Georgia or Tbilisi. The history of this factory continues in Soviet time also till the 1992, when the Soviet system collapsed. Everything what you see here, it's from Soviet time, but it's 85-92. this collection, and it's after the Soviet system collapsed, then these dresses just left here. When we came here, we found all these dresses here in the boxes.
Tbilisi is full of abandoned industrial buildings left to crumble in the 90s. Fabrica was once one of the biggest textiles factories in the Soviet Union, where clothes were designed to fit the communist ideology. But today it serves as a multi-purpose urban cultural center, housing design and concept stores, art studios, restaurants, and Tbilisi's biggest youth hostel. It's a building that once served to preserve the country's Soviet past, but now its walls and the people that inhabit it lie at the heart of Georgia's creative future.
Georgian designers don't have that education, or they don't have that kind of support what others like in London or New York and Europe they have, but here they are still really talented.
It's hard to produce in Georgia because we don't have like small laboratories that are doing like orders for designers. Also, we don't have like factories that are producing fabrics or some details, and also we can't produce here accessories. If fashion designer in Georgia want to produce like their own bag line, you can produce, because we don't have like factories or laboratories that are doing like professionally bags. I think that these things are pushing designers to work more hard.
Georgian designers, they don't have access to all these fabrics, they don't have investors, they have to make everything on their own. They have to be more creative, to do more research, because they don't have any such a big access to all these things as other designers in the world have.
It's hard to find materials of quality, and I think it's not only in fashion. I think this is a general situation in the country. For example, you need a pattern maker, and it's so hard to find a pattern. It's really like, oh, the pattern maker who is good and you can work with, so you can rely on this person. Then you try to find the ways to like deal with the situation. For example, I decided to learn it myself, and so I decided to learn pattern making myself because I couldn't find anyone, and then I started to learn sewing. And so actually most of the things that we make are produced by us.
Material poverty and political restrictions forced Georgians to be inventive in everyday life during the Soviet era. It was a constraint back then, but it perhaps left a legacy, one of constantly pushing the boundaries when it comes to creativity, which is arguably why Georgian fashion is spearheading the global fashion industry today.
Younger people, they are free, much more free than the generation before. They want to fight for their freedom, and they don't accept any rules. So I guess you can feel it from the collections they have.
Sofia Chokonya is the founder of Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week Tbilisi, the main fashion event in the country, which happens twice a year.
It's very difficult for Georgian designers to go to Milan, Paris or London or New York, because for them it's expensive. You have to have contacts to properly meet people there. But so I decided to create the platform in their home country where we could invite and bring international press and show them the creativity of Georgian designers. It was very difficult for the designers. They were not so optimistic about, they didn't believe the idea behind it, so they were thinking that nobody would be interested to come and see their collections. So the first thing is to prove them that it's really worthwhile to participate in this project. They didn't have an access to the big community of fashion and art in the world, so they were kind of separated, like Georgia. Nobody even know. Most of the people till now they don't know where Georgia is. So there is a huge interest at the moment because more and more people are coming to our fashion week from all over the world. We have a lot of international press, and also now we are starting to gather more buyers because finally Georgian designers started to sell, which is very important for them.
Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. It's also a reason that we are in spotlight because this Mercedes-Benz also brings public and attention to Georgia.
Tamuna Karumitse is a filmmaker and fashion designer. She's also part of a Georgian collective that creates urban fashion and skatewear.
Where the inspiration comes from, it's hard to say it like this because it adds up a lot. So it can be a piece of music, it can be somebody who I see on the street, it can be a story that I hear, or a movie. I get a lot of inspiration from movies, and it all comes together in my head, and then it creates a new image.
So how do you define your style?
I would say it's street style combined with high fashion, because of course high fashion, I wouldn't say I love it. It's like you can make great, beautiful things there, but I don't like things just to look good. For me, it's very important them to be very comfortable and functional. I don't make just clothes. I think of somebody or something, or maybe an imaginary character who would wear these things, because I think clothing is a thing that you, maybe on one hand you try to express your identity through your clothing, but at the same time it could be the way of creating a new identity for yourself.
Is there a huge skateboarding community in Tbilisi at the moment?
Not at the moment, but it's getting bigger, so it's really like happening now. It's becoming very popular. It's like, I don't know, in like 70s in California or something when it was like starting up. So it's getting really bigger because you can see a lot of kids with skateboards, and this is a moment where a big skate park is being built in Tbilisi, a new one. Before there was just one very small and weird skate park. So I think this is happening now, so we're getting there.
Do you feel like your designs have post-Soviet elements?
I don't think I have post-Soviet elements. There are so many brands that are doing this post-Soviet style. But I'm kind of not managing to include it into my fashion. I don't know why. It's not a decision, but maybe there are other things that are influencing me more. I get inspired by Soviet movies, by Soviet art, by Soviet music. They do inspire me, but I don't find the way how to get it into my fashion. I think it's easier for people to recognize where it comes from when you are being stuck to something that they know. For post-Soviet, it's very, everybody knows post-Soviet, and it's a very popular theme these days, so everything is being hanged on to that term.
People still don't understand that we are not part of Russia and we are not part of Soviet Union anymore. So obviously they label us because it was really a big thing, and we were part of Soviet Union for so long. Our country, we have such a great traditions and history. I think what Georgian is experimenting now itself with the style and everything, it's freedom. Like what was happening in Berlin and London back then a few years ago, now it's happening here. All the clubbing, young generation going crazy and free and with style and lifestyle. So this is all happening now in Georgia. I want people to understand that we are not, we didn't become Georgia because of Soviet Union and Russia, or Russia made us something. No, we were a country already with a lot of things already happening here.
I don't see any post-Soviet aesthetics in our designers anymore. Maybe there was before because they were trying to copy Demna, but not anymore, no.
Demna influenced Georgian fashion, but also Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week also helped us a lot to gain attention from international press. Also, superstars like celebrities, and they were wearing our sunglasses, clothes, and not only mine, but other designers also.
George Kaburia is one of Georgia's most famous fashion designers. His pieces have been worn by celebrities all across the world.
I think my style is really playful. Also, every time I'm experimenting with colors and shapes, like traveling in times.
Your style is sometimes defined as post-Soviet, and I want to find out how that makes you feel.
I don't think overall the style is like post-Soviet, my style. I think I'm more like in different place with the designs and the colors I'm using.
I was born in a small city, and the street that I was born, it was like spooky place, like a lot of destroyed factories, and everything was gray and black, and I think it's inspired me because maybe that's why I wanted to create something beautiful.
Post-Soviet aesthetic is, if we are speaking about 19, then this is a period when in 92, then in Georgia began the war between Abkhazia and Georgia, but it wasn't a war between Abkhazia and Georgia. It was war between more Russia and Georgia, and we had many refugees. Georgia became independent in 1992, and this was the meaning that we have no nothing, because this Soviet system collapsed. No light, no gas, no eating, no dress, and nothing in Georgia.
I think we called 90s that style, that we did, like in 90s, what was happening in country, what we had, and how we used to dress, or what was in the markets. That's what is post-Soviet like style, because this is what we had, and that's what we could afford. We didn't have that many shops or anything. We went to the markets, and we had few things to choose. We didn't have light and nothing, so nothing was happening. So I think people think that this is post-Soviet style, but it's actually the style of Georgia in 90s.
It's new and fresh, so they are trying to give a title for it.
Why ugly becomes cool? Well, because it's new. Because the West didn't see it. And somehow, because that ugly comes with somehow attached emotion.
I think it's a trend that will last for years. I think people get really bored with the post-Soviet aesthetic.
This is maybe why they call it post-Soviet, because we are still in this Soviet, doesn't exist. But at some point we're still stuck there, and it's a really this transitional situation.
A new style put Georgian fashion on the global map.
Post-Soviet is the trend which everybody recognizes.
In a small country whose present is often defined by its past.
And it's a post-Soviet country. I am a post-Soviet person.
Old tales never die, but here designers are reclaiming the narrative.
We're trying a lot to be unique.
They are crafting new styles, not always defined by their past, but sometimes as a reaction to it.
Now our generation wants to have totally colorful things.
And in doing so, they are laying down the foundations of a fashion industry that looks set to boom.
Fashion is like a dream for everyone.
There is no doubt that Georgia's Soviet past influenced its fashion scene, although most of the designers I spoke to in Tbilisi get their inspiration from many sources. Perhaps the international focus on a post-Soviet fashion aesthetic booming here says more about how many are quick to label Georgia in terms of its gloomy Soviet past rather than its diverse and creative present. Perhaps the post-Soviet aesthetic is just a new hype in a global fashion world that is constantly on the lookout for something new.